Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got a short little knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the CJRB Ekko liner lock variant. It also comes in a button lock variant. Both are very inexpensive. I will link them right down below this video because they should be available at the time that you're watching this. If you'd like to check out those links, it does help my channel, but that's entirely up to you. Thanks so much to CJRB for sending this in for me to take a look at. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me, and please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. Stuttered through that a little bit. Let's go ahead and get a measurement of this knife. Overall length of the Ekko coming in at 7.5 inches. Blade length 3 1/4. Cutting edge right at 3 inches. How about some size comparisons up against the Ontario Rat Model 1 and the Ontario Rat Model 2? Definitely a little closer to the Rat 2, but it does have a little bit more presence, so it kind of almost makes it feel like a full-size knife. Some people might call it full-size, right? Some people might not. It's more around the same presence as the Demco 80-20.5. It's just not quite as heavy, especially as the titanium variant. Let's put it up against another really great CJRB, and that's the Pyrite. This is the variant that also has a little opening slot there. How about up against the Civivi Elementum? That's another good size comparison. The Spyderco Para 3, I think, is a decent one. And then finally, maybe the Benchmade Bug Out, and that's really all we need to do for size comparisons. How is the action on this knife? It's very good. This knife has a front flipper, but as I always say, I think it's preferable when they couple it with another more familiar means of operation, and that's this little slot here, which works beautifully. It's very easy to reverse flick. Just really nice. This is how I like to see this done. There's plenty of space to get in there. You don't have to dig at it. It just feels natural. You know, people who have been using this means of operation for a while, this is going to be basically second nature. It's really, really nice. There's also plenty of access to the liner lock there. They did that right, and they also nested it. Really just feels completely and totally organic. Let's do carry profile. So thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. It's actually fairly thin and still contoured, which is nice. Length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3. This guy is really not going to take up any more room in the pocket than the Para 3, but it's a little bit shorter. I mean, even at its maximum height, the Para 3 is still a little taller. This is definitely a lot smaller than the PM2, so really no issues there. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check. I'm going to get out my tools. As per usual, my tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. Pretty sure we're still rocking a T8 here. Now, to my knowledge, this is not a captive pivot. In fact, if I turn this here, the other side wants to, hold on a second. Hold on, am I wrong? That actually feels like maybe it's not wanting to turn. I think we might actually have a situation here where we have a captive pivot. What I'm going to do is back this out. I want to look at the actual pivot barrel inside of there and see if we actually have a D-shaped pivot barrel. It doesn't look like it. So likely what's holding on this side, holding in this side, is just a lot of Loctite because the other side wasn't wanting to turn. So I would prefer... And the reason I'm skeptical is because I noticed on their Pyrite, it's the same thing. They don't have a captive pivot. I would prefer that CJRB explore the possibility of adding D-shaped pivot barrels to their knives. In fact, it's not just CJRB, it's everybody. D-shaped pivot barrels and everybody's happy. That way it's captive. We don't have to worry about whether or not that Loctite holds. I don't want a free spinning pivot. You don't want to have to buy 2 drivers, etc. But this seems to be just fine. The other screws on the body are T6, and I wish they would move to T8, but they, whatever, right? It's still minimal. As long as you have the right tools or a set of quality tools and a place to put your hardware, you should be good to go. This is not going to be a difficult knife to take apart, so no big deal there. Let's go ahead and weigh it. We are looking at contoured micarta. Depending on the version that you get, it'll either be flat or contoured. And they have G10, they've got carbon fiber, they've got micarta, right? If you click on the link in the description, it'll show you all the different variants that are available. They also even have versions that are like black coated. But this is a contoured sort of forest green micarta, which I much prefer to the OD, right? Or swamp booger, which is not my favorite. Then again, though, I always say that I like natural G10, and that's like nuclear swamp booger, so maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. Choose the color that you like the best. You don't have to listen to me. The weight on this guy, we're looking at nested steel liners, AR RPM 9 and micarta, AR RPM 9 for the blade, coming in at 3.35, I'm sorry, we have an update, 3.39 ounces, which is really not bad. It's very well balanced as far as, the whole ounce of weight to inch of blade ratio. The actual balance on the knife comes in a little bit back from the pivot, but still falling nicely into that standard, the primary position for your index finger, so that's fine. No big deal there. Let's go ahead and measure blade stock thickness. The blade stock, Is it almost time for a new battery in this thing? No, we're good. The blade stock thickness on this guy, 120? 125. That's, I think, par for the course for CJRB, so that's fine. Yeah, okay. Have we done everything? Let's go ahead and move on to the meat and potatoes here. This is a pretty straightforward looking knife, but it's straightforward and generic done well. Honestly, this is a lot of times I'm like, I think I would prefer the same thing, but in the button lock variant, I would just makes it better. I don't know. In this situation, everything is done so well. I mean, I'd have to handle the button lock version. I could imagine it, but truthfully, everything here is just done the right way. And surprise, surprise. And actually, I was surprised by this because this is a little as traditional as this looks. Like all the lines are like really straight, right? This is a Laconico design. And I was like, oh, okay, it's not quite what he usually does, right? But it's one of those things where you look at it afterwards and you think, oh, okay, I can kind of see that. Ergonomically, it's very, very good. You can choke up here right behind the blade. All of these areas are very accommodating for the human hand, right? It just feels very, very natural. This is contoured, which is nice. The edges are knocked down enough. There's a little bit of an angle here, but it's not sharp. The pocket clip is good. It's not super long and it's rounded at the end, right? So really all of the positions here feel really natural. The one thing that I really wish is that they would have extended the jimping all the way out to where the swedge starts, because that's kind of where my thumb naturally wants to rest. That's not really that big of a deal though. Truthfully, this is a really, really comfortable knife and it doesn't lock you into a certain, I mean, this is quite a bit of space for hands that are like mine. I wear an XL glove, so if your hands are the same size or smaller, this feels really roomy. It's honestly surprisingly roomy for a knife that's only 7.5 inches long. That's something that I really appreciate. This definitely does the whole minimalist aesthetic, which is something that we have seen a billion times over. And because it is that way, this is not likely to be a knife that becomes an evergreen or that people remember for a long period of time, but that doesn't mean that it's not worth doing or it's not good. It definitely is. Really, the best thing here is that this knife will be insanely, everything that they could have done right with this particular design, in my opinion, they did right. This will be extremely familiar, right? I mean, there's nothing here where they tried to do something weird or wacky and it just didn't work with the design. Everything is just in the right place. For a lot of people looking for their first good knife, this is gonna be it. I don't usually say that like 7 minutes into the review, but it really is. It's gonna nail a lot of that stuff for a lot of people. It even has the blade shape that I prefer, which is a sheep's foot blade. I've just come to find that a sheep's foot or a Wharncliffe is just kind of perfect for EDC. A sheep's foot, I think, in particular, the reason being, especially like a kind of a shorter, I mean, this isn't quite what I call a full-size knife. That starts at about 8 inches, but with my finger being able to get here comfortably up on what I call the nose of the blade, the tip points down, which means doing draw cuts, which I find that I do a lot throughout the day. That makes it really easy, but it also still has a tip, so you can still puncture, and it also still has belly, which, all those things are going to be true for a Wharncliffe except for the belly part, which makes your slicing tasks really easy. The blade geometry is also good. We have a little bit of a swedge and a little flat here, but really it has plenty of room, and the geometry allows it to drop down to a pretty thin edge. Tumbled finish on this guy, and AR RPM 9 is one of the only, I think it is the only consistently found, it's the only powder form steel that you will consistently find in budget territory, or on this channel, I call that under $75. This is proprietary for CJRB/Artisan Cutlery, and it's a lot like powder formed 9CR18 MOV, so you get even particle distribution. 9CR18 MOV is a great budget steel anyway. It's stainless, it's fairly tough, pretty easy to sharpen, decent edge retention, right? Especially when we're putting it up against other steels that you find in budget territory. So that's nice. I have no problem with AR RPM 9. I think it's one of the better choices out there. So really, there's really just nothing wrong with the blade. It's good. There's nothing spectacular or mind-blowing going on with this knife. It's just good, right? It's a solid, A minus, right? It's hard for me to like really want to freak out about anything here, but there's just nothing to complain about, right? There's a little bit of a pivot collar. That's fine. Just giving it a little bit of character there, a little bit of sauce, a little bit of zazz, and an otherwise kind of simple, handle aesthetic. We have a spot for lefties to mount the pocket clip. CJRB cares about left-handed people. That's great, right? I don't think this looks bad on this. There's no crazy designs or anything going on for a pocket, that's cut into it to kind of ruin. So I think that's fine. We've got a lanyard thing. That's a nice way to do the lanyard thing. It's the technical term, lanyard thing, because we don't have a hole here, right? We don't, that should never be prioritized. The pocket clip and its positioning should always be prioritized. The lanyard thing should always be secondary because very, very few people care about it. But the people who do care about it, you still have an option and you have nothing to complain about, so don't. There's, that's so dismissive. Sorry. The standoffs. There are standoffs. I don't know what I was going to say about them. That's fine. I like that the liners are nested and not lipped. I think that looks better. It's not quite as thick. Weight reduction, etc. It's nice that they go out of their way to do that and still add the liners for extra solidity, or at least the feeling of solidity, right? Just the G10 by itself, I think, might have made it feel a little bit flimsy, but they didn't do that, so that's fine. We have a stop pin located in its traditional position. No shouldering, but that's okay. This knife does run on bearings, as you might have guessed. No blade play up, down, left, or right. No lock stick. Really nice. This is, CJRB Artisan Color. I used to kind of expect there to be a little bit of stick. There's no stick here. It is truly just nothing. Really, really nice. But still, ouch, I poked myself in with that. Got a little over the top there. No blade play up, down, left, or right. Your natural lockup is coming in something like 60%, which is totally fine. No pivot lash, extremely smooth in here. Really, the action on this is really, really smooth. This is essentially falling shut here. And then I took the blade, or I sort of unscrewed it and then screwed it back in. So I wonder if just giving it a little bit of an additional crank here will move the blade back in, and we'll check the action again after I do that. But let's just give her a little bit of a crank. Did we help that at all? I think, boy, that looks pretty on to me. How's the action? Are we still? Yeah, okay. We're actually essentially where we were. That's really nice that just came back together that way. Okay. Short and sweet here, guys. This is a $54 knife. Nothing new, nothing crazy going on here, but it is good. The price is good. CJRB's quality control is obviously just getting better and better and better. They go out of their way to do things that other companies are not doing, and they're offering great materials and working with people like Ray Laconico to bring people good generic, but good, dependable EDC folding knives. This is a great knife to pick up and just have as a daily beater. If you're, not new to the knife world, if you're new to the knife world and you're looking for one to start with, this is a great one to start with. If you're looking to purchase a gift for somebody, this is also a good one to pick up, right? You're not going to wow anybody with this. This isn't going to win any awards, but it's a good knife. This is going to go on my recommended knives playlist, and it's also going to go on my cheap knives. I like playlist because it is well under $75. Excellent value here, and nice to see CJRB continuing to make, great knives with a great value. That's really all I have to say, guys. I don't know that there's anything else here. Thanks so much to CJRB for sending this in. Like I said, you can find this down in the description. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.